Hi Erica, how are you? I just wanted to take the time to record this personal video for you and just say thank you so much for all that you do, honestly. I wanted to feedback and let you know that I have officially delivered the workshop that I had set out to do on the 23rd of April. It's about 2 weeks ago now. And honestly, it's just the journey to getting there literally took about 9 months. It was not easy at all. But now that that's been done, it's just like, okay, I realized that I've just gone through a whole journey and a whole process that actually there's so many gems and so many nuggets in there to share with others.
Recently, I was so excited to come across that video in my email sent to me from Ayo, one of our students in the Framework to Fluency program. And not just any student, one of the founding members who has been with us since the beginning, since several months ago. So what was that all about? What had her so excited? Well, I recently had the privilege to sit down with her. So I want to share with you guys in this very real, very candid interview exactly what she had been able to accomplish with her Spanish, the ups and the downs of her journey to getting there, and what you can glean from her experience on your way to accomplish your next Spanish goal. Comencemos, amigos. If you could just kind of remind us about what were you working on? You know, what was the big goal that you were trying to accomplish?
Okay, so the big goal was me trying to deliver a 90-minute workshop, interactive workshop at that, because I did not want it to be monotone. Hello, my name is Ayo, and this is a workshop from me to you. That wasn't how I wanted it to be, right? So it was a 90-minute workshop of teaching girls and giving them tools and tips on how to boost their confidence and boost their self-esteem and stop being insecure, basically, or tools to boost their self-esteem, essentially. So estamos listas para empezar este taller. Entonces, hola a todos y bienvenidos a este taller. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme aquí. Estoy muy agradecida porque lo que estoy haciendo ahora es mi primera vez de de hacer algo como porque soy autodidacta de español y esta es mi primera vez de hacer un taller completamente en español. Y realmente, ¡wow! ¡Gracias! Y nuestro tema el día de hoy es cómo dejar de sentirte insegura y aumentar tu autoestima. Este tema es muy, muy importante para todos. So yeah, I remember joining the F to F program, and I was like, because before I got in touch with you, Erica, I was at a brick wall, quite literally, right? So it was really frustrating because, you know, you go through the process of going through loads of YouTube videos, you go through the process of, it's almost like you know what you need, but you don't even have vocabulary for what you need. So it's really frustrating because then like even expressing what you need is just really frustrating. So I remember finding your program and I was kind of just like, with most things, because we live in the day and age where people can be quite fraudulent, right? So you're looking at most things of like a can I trust this sort of situation? Like, person trustworthy? Where are their receipts? Like, you know. But because I had been watching your videos, I was like, okay, cool. And I remember just seeing the program, and it's really good that outside of just like my Spanish learning journey, I just know about myself. So I know the type of learner I am. Like, I know that my skills are in the communication, but in terms of like processes and systems, I am very organized as well in terms of setting up a plan, but then setting up a system, I understand that to a certain degree, or I know how to do it, but it's not necessarily my strength. That's in English, but then having that in Spanish, it was just a bit like, so that's basically where I was prior to joining the program. So I remember joining the program, and then I was like, okay, cool, this program, it's great. It was the blueprint to be able to launch pad me into that thing.
Right.
So that it was liberating. So I got to a new level in terms of like my system and my structure, but it was also frustrating because I realized that even though you've been given the roadmap, and I think that's the part of life that many of us like even struggle with, like we want the roadmap to success, but then we think that that means sitting back and sleeping in bed all day. Like we somehow, you know, don't get the memo sometimes that there's still work in this.
There's still a lot of work, definitely.
There's still a lot of work in this. So that brings me up to the point where I shared the goal with you, because one of the greatest things that the course actually got me to do was, okay, cool, what's your goal? Like I was sort of playing around and toying around with the goal, but I hadn't like finalized it. And then actually the concept of setting a SMART goal in language learning, because it's almost like what the course started to help me do was, I'm going to make up a word here, but like vocabularize what I had been trying to say, but didn't know how to say, kind of thing. So yeah, it gave me vocabulary for the fact that I needed to set a SMART goal, and then even like just contextualizing it. I don't remember the exact method in my off the top of my head right now, but it just basically gave me the breakdown for that. So I was like, right, okay, cool. We're going to do this goal. We're going to do a workshop, because another thing is I didn't want a goal that was like irrelevant. I needed it to be something that I actually do. And because I do workshops in English for girls and their self-esteem, I thought, hey, do the same thing in Spanish. So we set the goal now. A veces es que en nuestras mentes pensamos que no soy perfecta y eso significa que no soy suficiente. Tengo mis faltas, tengo mis dudas, entonces eso significa que necesito trabajar más, necesito demostrar mi valía, que soy suficiente. Y es que no, necesito valorarme también con mis imperfecciones. I had said to you that my biggest thing was my personal story. I'm not sure if you remember.
Yes, I do.
Ahora voy a compartir con ustedes mi historia personal. Ok. Bueno, para empezar, ok, necesito tomar un poco de agua, ¿no? Bueno, ¿quién soy yo? Bueno, pues me llamo Ayo, y un hecho muy divertido sobre mi nombre es que es un nombre desde Nigeria y se llama Alegría. Y realmente, sinceramente, soy una persona que la significa de mi nombre y yo iguales. O sea, es que soy una mujer con mucha energía por la gracia de Dios. I couldn't contextualize the idea of like memorizing a 20-minute script, for example. But then at the same time, I couldn't imagine like winging it, because I didn't have the vocabulary to wing it, number one. And then number two, I was like, this whole idea of thinking in Spanish, like how do you think in Spanish? Like where does that ability even come from? I later realized some of the tools and techniques, which we'll get into. And one of the amazing things that you hooked me up with was neurolanguage.
Yeah.
So setting me up with that was really amazing. So when I got the coach, her name is Marcela, and we started our language learning coaching journey. And I guess the difference between sort of like tutoring and coaching was I was in the driver's seat now, because like I realized, it's like, okay, so today we're gonna do conjugation verbs. It's like, no, I don't want to do conjugation. What I really want to do is I want to express that I need to tell my personal story, and I don't know how to, right? Because previously the way I've done sort of like having a tutor has been, oh, you know best, so you lead me. Whereas now I'm like, no, listen, ever since joining that course, I know the direction I'm going in. So it's sort of managing that. Documenting this process was so great. And like, you know how I would send little screenshots?
Yes. I love that so much. I was like, this is awesome for us to see. I mean, me and everyone in the community, but, you know, also for you to look back on, because I knew this moment would arrive and then to go back and see, you know, because sometimes we just, at least for me, like I forget kind of what it took for me to get to a certain point. And so documenting that is just amazing and really helpful for when you move on to the next thing, because you kind of remember bits and pieces of those factors that worked, and then you can duplicate them for the next goal.
Absolutely. And that is the key there, like duplicating it. So key. So one of the things that I got from you was about having things in phases. So the first thing that I did in the prepare phase was, at first I started like looking at different, my goals were around like watching YouTube videos around self-esteem. So that was a lot of like comprehensible input. But another part of the process is I found myself trying to prove to myself that I know Spanish. In this point when I was trying to prove to myself, it's almost like, oh no, Ayo, you should be able to do this. But then I quickly had to realize, and it took me probably a few weeks to stop fighting with this, but it was like, Ayo, no, you're not going to say what you want to say because your Spanish level is here, but you want to communicate here.
Yes.
So actually getting it transcribed in the way that it's really going to be said is what you actually want to go through. So that was something that I had to do.
Since you do have your story in English, it's not like someone's feeding you your story, you have that, it's part of who you are. So, even if you do bring in help with that from the beginning, it's still your story. And, and like we were saying, you're at that level where you'll be able to say, this is not really the way I want to express it. Let's come up with something else.
Yeah. And it's so interesting in this language learning space, because it's almost like you feel you should be greater than you are. So it's almost like you beat yourself up for the level that you are at. And like, there's such a mental battle, because throughout this whole journey, like the things and the thoughts I was realizing about myself, like how I was thinking about the process, like me putting shame towards, the fact that, oh, well, you should know better. Like, why do you need to get someone to translate? And it's so wild, but like, I'm almost speaking about the ugly side of things that I don't necessarily hear so much on YouTube, So, so that was an example of one of the mental barriers I had to get through in the beginning in terms of the prepare phase, and like identifying smaller milestones within the bigger goal. But I can say that from the beginning, I wish I just scripted it completely
Okay.
And then just memorize that. Week 14, I start doing different activities. I stop focusing on this story, and then the goal is to rekindle the fire for Spanish, because at this point I started resenting the journey. I started like, I don't know if I can do this kind of thing. I started getting bored of the same thing, getting overwhelmed.
I was going to ask you if there were other things that you were doing with Spanish, or if it was just completely focused on this.
That's another thing I didn't realize. A lot of my time when it came to Spanish, I forgot that, I could watch YouTube videos in Spanish. I forgot, because remember, Erica, do you know what's so wild? At first, remember when I wanted to do this in 6 weeks? That is so laughable. Like, it's so laughable because I can be so goal oriented. Like, I just want to go. But then you really encouraged me, because you were just like, let's just start a little bit slow. Like, I don't remember how you worded it, but that was even liberation in and of itself, because I'm thinking I've set this goal, so that means this goal needs to be accomplished now. And then, I had tunnel vision. So I'm just like, yeah, that's it. But you even encouraging me to slow down, but not in a give up kind of way. Just the idea that the smaller goals are the goals.
Yeah, the milestones. The milestones of the goal. That's so important. And that's why when we, one of the things that I recommend when we're setting a SMART goal is for it not to extend maximum 12 weeks, right? But I mean, it could be really short. It could be a 1 week thing. It could be up to like maybe a 12-week thing maximum. And some goals that are so big, like this one that you have, they're not going to be able to be accomplished maybe in that amount of time. So that finding the milestones, finding what part of this, can I accomplish, so that I still have time to breathe, so that I still have time to do just other things with Spanish that maybe have nothing to do with this, right? Just enjoy. It is so important, because otherwise it's really easy to get burned out when something is so long-term. But I'm really glad that you were able to work through that, and you were coming to these realizations as you went, journaling and going through the process. And I mean, that's fantastic. That's really what it takes sometimes.
Yeah, no, honestly, thank you. And just like you said, like, the journaling was so key, because I was expressing how I was feeling. I wasn't shying away from the fact that I was like, I'm done with you Spanish for now kind of thing. So then when we get to like probably like what week is this? This is like week 15 now. I start, reading my Bible again in Spanish. I start exploring a Mexican culture. I start getting back into enjoying the language. Because at this point I was just like, Spanish, like, who are you? Like,
I don't want to know you anymore.
I don't want to know you, right? One of the things you mentioned as well is there's no point going over the things that you already know, because it's only going to just like almost feed your ego, but then what you really need it for, you haven't even fulfilled that purpose. Right. And I recognize that with the subjunctive, with past tense, it was just, not my greatest spot. So, and because I started to realize, hold on, my whole story is past tense, everything. And I was like, okay, this makes sense that I should really focus on past tense. I scripted it in bullet points. So it wasn't scripted like a paragraph like you'd see in books, but it was literally bullet points, like probably in total, probably like 30 bullet points, but in the way that I'd say it. I realized, I was like, no, this just needs to be scripted. Like, right. I can't think of these words on my own, kind of thing. Not yet, anyway. Let me go back in the story really quickly. In September, I had to learn a spoken word piece to deliver on the 30th or 31st of December, last day of year 2021. But it was just basically the phases, like, okay, cool, writing it down, recording yourself saying it, listen to that recording repeatedly, and as you're listening to it, pause it, write it. And through September to December, I had gone through that process with my spoken word. So when we now come back to January and it's time for me to come to this Spanish goal that I need to have, I'm like, hold on a second, I just memorized a 9-minute spoken word piece, and somehow that was the process I needed to go for this story, which was literally memorizing it. And I felt like a fraud for memorizing my story, because I was like, no, I'm hearing all this pressure, like, no, you should just know it. But it's like, no, you're not going to know it. Then later down the line, that's when I started to realize the importance of reading, because now where I'm at, I realize and recognize, and we'll go deeper into how the story, the journey progressed. But now I recognize that reading and constant, and you say this, but like reading words that already exist, sentence structures that already exist, that input over time just develops in your mind, and then you're able to form it. But then it's doing practices, I found for me, like handwriting out what I'm listening to, because I started to realize the brain connection with writing and reading and listening. And I don't know the science to it in its entirety, but I thought, if I could memorize a spoken word piece, I can definitely do that for Spanish as well. So I recorded, so I literally got the script at this point. I sent it to Marcela to see, okay, cool, I'm reading this off paper right now, but as you're listening to it, tell me if it sounds natural. There are a few things that she corrected, and then she was like, oh, Ayo, just this minor error, stuff like that. Cool. Re-recorded it, sent it back to her, and then she's like, good to go. Just to have something to listen to, just the repetition helps with the vocabulary. It really, really does. It just, there are things, little presentations that I've done like 15 years ago that I still remember just because of the repetition. There's so much repetition, that already gives you a jump start on, the vocabulary and how sentences are structured. So yeah, I think that would be good. Just have something, to have in your ear, listening to when you do other things. And let me even show you on my phone, like right now, this is real life data, right? So when I would go on my runs in the mornings, I would associate running time with Spanish time. Nice. So I had a story, and you can see here, right? Capta la atención, el contexto. So the bullet points were in each of those segments, because during the period where I was learning how to tell a story in Spanish, watching Spanish content, these were the main characteristics, like how to, tell a captivating story. So this was how I wrote the bullet points in Spanish. So when I would go for my run, I literally would just memorize this. And what I didn't do enough of, because I realized this is really like the key here, when I would listen to it constantly just on replay, I found that when I handwrite it out, somehow that's where it's almost like it would just stick in my mind. So it's almost like, segments 1, 2, and 3, I knew them really well because I wrote them out. Segments 4 and 5, it was a bit like kind of thing. So so I just realized that I had to jump over that in terms of feeling like a fraud, that it was okay for me to memorize the script. And during my weekly sessions with Marcela at this point, we would only have them once a week, by the way, so it was never more than once a week. I would just go through them with her and just basically act like I was doing it in front of her, show her the presentation, and just sort of like if she had things to correct, she would. But I almost felt so confident with just winging that. So yeah, that's how it happened. So now come to presentation day. Oh my goodness, I was absolutely like, so it ended up me not being in Mexico. It ended up being virtual because the person was arranging, it was a change of dates, my calendar, just long story, ended up being. So it comes to presentation day and I am absolutely so scared. So started and I was just like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Like, introduction, like, why are you here, etc. Y antes de comenzar, me gustaría saber por qué estás aquí. And then we go and I do the self-introduction and stuff like that. Then it comes to my personal story. I literally read my story off the screen. No quería ir desde Inglaterra a Nigeria. No, yo no quería ir. Y mis papás me decían, sí, Ayo. Y yo decía, no, mamá, no, papá. Hasta que mis papás literalmente dijeron, te vas a Nigeria. No hay vuelta de hoja. But it was interesting because after that moment where I had done that was the only thing, like everything else, the workshop, like, everything else was completely in Spanish. I had my bullet points as you would do on a presentation, and it was just going as normal. Y la razón por la cual ahora pueden ver este ayo de confianza es porque me he dado que el tiempo de descubrir quién soy y la tarea de equiparme para aumentar mi autoestima todos los días. Y la realidad es que la vida tiene sus altibajos, sus eventos desafortunados, pero tenemos el poder de hacer cambio, de hacer un cambio. Y realmente es por eso que estoy aquí para compartirles las herramientas prácticas para aumentar y reestablecer su autoestima, ¿sí? ¿Verdad? Y tener más confianza en ustedes mismas. And then there were some times like I'd be trying to express myself and I'd just say, ¿cómo se dice? And then I'd ask for help, for example, from my friend who's there who's also learning Spanish. Por favor, si no tienes ahora, está bien. Si necesitas, ¿cómo se dice? Like to go and get it. ¿Cómo se dice? But then generally speaking, after I had jumped over that, it was fine. Like I was honestly like, like this is okay. And then we got to the end and then the feedback was so amazing. They were like, so I got them to stay on. I was like, okay, how did you find this? And they were like, this was amazing. Like we need more of this kind of thing. So that was the long process. I wanted to talk you through the ups and the downs and not be like, oh yeah, it was fantastic, because it really wasn't. Like that was a long process, right?
Yeah. And that's amazing. I mean, even, I was just imagining, I mean, even with like the reading of your personal story, but with all of the preparation, with all of the times that you listened to it, all of the times that you spoke it out loud, I mean, I'm even sure that the reading was delivered with such passion, with your personal touch, because you had gone over it so many times, you had it, and just, feeling more confident reading it from the screen is perfectly fine. But I know that all of the emotion, all of the, all that you would have put into it was still there. So, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's in the moment when you just kind of realize what is it that you need to do to be able to deliver this in the best way possible, the way that's most beneficial for your audience, and whatever it takes. All that has led up to that point is never ever time wasted, because the effort always shines through in the moment. It always does. It's amazing.
Al principio lo odié, literalmente. O sea, yo comía, estudiaba y dormía en la escuela, como 24 horas al día, ¿no? Estaba en la escuela. Y también otra cosa es que yo estaba muy lejos de mis papás, como era una relación de larga distancia, ¿no? O sea, larga distancia con ellos, ¿sí? And the area that I really recognize I need to work on is my writing. It's so easy to slack on the writing. Listening, most of us have that in the bag.
Yeah.
You know? Like, listen, we can listen passively or actively, whatever. You know, speaking, yeah. You know, and what are the other skills again? Reading, writing, reading.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Erica, reading. That's a whole nother conversation, right? But reading really changes the game. But like that in itself is, you know, we get used to either reading out loud or reading in our minds, right? You know, whether we're doing it for input or output. But I'm finding that my writing, like you say, all four of them have to be present. But I'm just thinking, how do I make all four of them present in my day-to-day where I'm not so focused on this bigger goal? And the Bible has been that thing for me. So as I'm going through this review process with my coach, the consistent thing whilst I'm doing this is the Bible stuff. So I just literally open the Bible, read it, or hand write out the scripture, then I would say it out loud. And then during the day, maybe say, for example, I might listen to a quick, you know, podcast, or I might listen to a YouTube video. Some days I miss my listening because I just forget and I have to be really intentional about it. But that's how I'm trying to incorporate it in my day-to-day life. I recorded the session, so my coach and I go through it and we literally just pick out, you know, some of the things, like if there was something I was trying to express, but I didn't, so I just used what I could. I was like, oh, okay, this is what I was trying to express. How could I have said it better? So yeah, so I'm still going through that review process at the moment.
Is it helping you? Sorry to interrupt. Is that, how have you felt during the review process? Like in those moments that you're like, okay, this is what I was trying to say, I wasn't able to express it, and then she helps you with it. Is that kind of helping you, do you think, to, you know, for the next time that you do a similar presentation, or how have you felt during that process?
So far, I felt it's really useful. So I haven't even gone back to watch the review because personally, I'm just going to, once we've done all 4 reviews, then I want to watch it, because what I'm going to do is actually do this probably workshop like 2-3 more times on Zoom, to the point where when I do it in person, I would have had all the practice, right?
Yes.
So that's why I say it's a blessing in disguise, because if this had been, I'm not ready for this to be in person yet. Like, I'm really not, for the level at, and I say this humbly, for the level at which, you know, the audiences I speak to, like, Ayo, give yourself some credit. This is in another language.
Exactly.
Public speaking is hard enough. Public speaking in another language, like, my goodness. So like, I'm not ready. So I say that to say, the process has been really helpful of actually me recognizing how hard I can be on myself, number one, me recognizing that the goal is to communicate and the goal is to add value to those girls. And their feedback was so amazing. It's also given me data into what they are even looking at, what their needs are, because, you know, when you're live in the moment, there are just so many things that you just miss. So watching it back has been really useful. It's also been really useful for me recognizing my growth in, before, when you're a beginner, often when you don't understand most things, you like stop on the words you don't understand, but because the person has carried on talking, you're stuck there, and then you just miss everything that they've said, and then you feel so overwhelmed because you understand nothing. Whereas now, I don't need to understand like what some of those girls were saying. I didn't understand what they were saying, but I understood 80%, and that 80% was enough to give me context to what they were trying to say. And listening back and realizing that I didn't listen then, but my response was still great. I was like, go with your higher intermediate self, you know, like, you're good. Like, so yeah, those are some of the things I would say that the review process is doing for me. And I'm like, this 9-month journey that I've been on, no way can it go to waste. Like, I need to squeeze out every bit of juice from this lemon. Solo quiero decirles gracias por estar aquí conmigo y este taller porque sí, no puedo creer que sucedió. Es como una bomba. En español también, con mis errores, con mis imperfecciones y todo. Pero entonces, gracias por estar aquí conmigo.
Ayo, from the bottom of my heart, I want to tell you how grateful we are to you, not only for sharing your accomplishment with us, but the process that led you there. We wish you the absolute best with all of your future endeavors, and we cannot wait to continue to follow your journey. If you could identify with any of the struggle points that Ayo described, or if you're not even sure where to begin, how to put together a plan to lead you to your next Spanish goal, then I invite you to my free masterclass, a Framework to Fluency masterclass, where you're going to learn how to put together an insanely effective Spanish study routine so that you can accomplish your next Spanish goal. You can join with the link below or by going to ericaraylanguage.com/masterclass. That's all for today, guys, but until next time, don't forget to go out and live your new language today. Bye-bye.